My parents kept inviting my ex-wife to family gatherings for years. But everything changed once I uncovered her scheme to take everything from me and ruin my life. Hey everyone, I'm Ryan. And honestly, I'm not sure where to begin. I'm 34 now, and it's been 5 years since my ex-wife Jenna and I finalized our divorce. Let's just say the separation wasn't exactly peaceful. It was more like a courtroom inferno. So, you can imagine my shock when I showed up at my parents' house for Thanksgiving last year and found her sitting at the table like she still belonged there. At first, I thought, this is awkward, but maybe they're just trying to be polite. Jenna and I were married for 6 years before everything fell apart, and my parents always liked her, especially my mum. Still, we were divorced. It wasn't just Thanksgiving. I soon discovered Jenna had been invited to birthdays, Christmases, and even casual Sunday dinners, all without me knowing. To top it off, my mum had started sharing family updates with her before even telling me. For example, when my younger sister Emily got a new job, I heard about it from Jenna before Emily had the chance to text me. It was like I'd stepped into some bizarre alternate world where my ex-wife was the one integrated into my family while I was the outsider. At first, I tried to ignore it. Jenna always had a way of charming people, and I figured my parents felt sorry for her. But then things got weird. My parents, David and Karen, started making little comments about how I didn't call enough or spend enough time with the family. Meanwhile, they'd go on and on about how Jenna was such a wonderful person for staying close despite everything. Hearing my ex-wife praised as some kind of family saint while I was treated like the black sheep made me want to scream. Did they forget she cheated on me? But any time I brought it up, they didn't want to hear it. The breaking point came when my mum made a snide comment during a phone call. You know, Ryan, Jenna mentioned you're dating someone new. It's disappointing you didn't think we deserved to know. I nearly dropped my phone. First, my girlfriend Olivia and I had only been dating for about 6 months, and we weren't rushing to introduce each other to our families. Second, why was Jenna still invested in my personal life? I hadn't spoken to her directly since the divorce. How does she even know that? I asked my mom, trying to stay calm. Oh, she said casually. Jenna mentioned it in passing. She said she saw you at the farmer's market with some girl. You really should have told us, Ryan. We're your family. That's when it all clicked. Jenna wasn't just staying in touch with my parents to be friendly. She was keeping tabs on me and using my family to do it. Olivia, being as perceptive as she is, picked up on something being off pretty quickly. One night, while having dinner at her place, I told her everything. How my parents had practically adopted Jenna, and how she seemed to know way more about my life than she should. Olivia didn't say much at first. She was clearly piecing it all together. Finally, she looked at me and said, Ryan, this isn't normal. She's crossing boundaries, and your parents are letting her. You need to talk to them. She was right, of course. But confronting my parents was easier said than done. My mum, especially, is stubborn and always thinks she knows best. She's the self-appointed mediator of family issues and rarely takes criticism well. I could already hear her saying, You're overreacting, Ryan. Jenna's just being friendly. You should be thankful she cares enough to stay in touch. But I knew I had to say something. The next time I visited my parents, I brought it up as carefully as I could. Hey, Mom, Dad, can we talk about something? I asked while we were sitting in the living room. Of course, my dad said, putting down his newspaper. My mum, folding laundry, barely looked up. It's about Jenna, I said. What about her? She asked, her tone defensive. Well, I've noticed she's been coming to a lot of family events. I understand you guys care about her, but it's starting to feel off. Why is she still so involved? My mum let out an exasperated sigh, setting the shirt she was folding onto the couch. Ryan, we're not going to cut Jenna out of our lives just because you two got divorced. She was part of this family for 6 years, and she's been through a lot. Frankly, she's been more present than you have lately. That hit me like a slap. What do you mean by more present? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. What do you mean, she asks, about the business? My dad chimed in casually. She's just curious. She knows how important the family business is to us. She even offered to help out if we ever need it. That set off alarm bells in my head. Jenna offering to help with the family business, the business I'd been working in since I was 22 and was supposed to take over one day. I didn't say anything else, but my mind was racing. She wasn't just keeping tabs on me. She was trying to weasel her way into something deeply tied to my future, and my parents didn't see it. That night, I told Olivia everything. She was livid on my behalf, but more than that, she was worried. Ryan, she said, you need to find out what she's really up to. This isn't just about family dinners anymore. It's about your future. She was right. I couldn't just let this slide. I spent the next week replaying my mom's words in my head. She even asked about the business. That single sentence haunted me. The family business, an industrial supplies company my grandfather started, was supposed to be my legacy. I had worked tirelessly for over a decade, learning every aspect of the operation, from inventory to logistics. My parents had always told me it would be mine someday, but now I wasn't so sure. The idea of Jenna sniffing around something so important to me made my blood boil. I knew I couldn't sit idly by. I had to figure out her intentions. The first person I turned to was Emily, my younger sister. At 27, she wasn't very involved in the family business, but she had a sharp eye for catching things others missed. If Jenna was plotting something, Emily might have seen the signs. Hey, Em, I said casually when she picked up the phone. Ryan, long time no talk. What's up? Not much, I replied, trying to keep my tone light. Listen, I've been meaning to ask. What's the deal with Jenna being around all the time? Doesn't it seem strange to you? There was a brief silence before Emily responded. Honestly, yeah, it's kind of weird, she admitted. But Mom and Dad seemed so into it that I didn't want to stir the pot. What do you mean, into it? I asked, leaning in. Well, she began. She's been really buddy-buddy with them lately. She's always asking Dad about his plans for the business, and Mom acts like she's the perfect daughter-in-law, even though she's not your wife anymore. It's honestly kind of gross. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. What exactly does she ask Dad about the business? Thanks, Em, I said, working hard to keep my voice steady. This really helps. Emily hesitated. Ryan, you don't think she's trying to, screw you over or something, do you? I didn't answer right away because, truthfully, I wasn't sure. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm going to find out. After my chat with Emily, I started keeping a closer eye on Jenna's behavior. Through the grapevine, I learned she'd been spending time with Mark, someone I couldn't stand. Mark was a competitor in our industry who had unsuccessfully tried to steal some of our top clients. If Jenna and Mark were working together, It could spell serious trouble for my family's business. I decided to investigate. Jenna's social media didn't reveal much. She was always careful about what she posted. But Mark's profile was a different story. Buried among photos of industry events and networking dinners was a picture of him and Jenna at an upscale restaurant. It was dated just a month ago, with the caption, "Great things on the horizon." My stomach turned. What kind of great things were they planning? That evening, I showed the photo to Olivia. "This can't be a coincidence, right?" I asked. She studied the picture, her frown deepening. "No way. She's definitely up to something. Do you think she's trying to sabotage you?" "That's what I'm afraid of," I admitted. If she and Mark are working together, they could be plotting to take over the business, or at least mess things up for me. Olivia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Ryan, you need to tell your parents. They need to know what's going on before it's too late." That weekend, I decided to confront my parents. Unfortunately, it turned into one of the most awkward and frustrating conversations of my life. It started off harmless enough. We were having dinner at their house, just the three of us, when I brought up the subject. "So, I've noticed Jen has been pretty involved with the family lately," I said, keeping my tone as neutral as possible. "Oh, hasn't she been wonderful? It's so nice having her around." "Yeah," I replied, forcing a smile. "But don't you think it's a little odd? I mean, she's not family anymore. Why is she so interested in the business?" My dad looked up from his plate. "She's just curious, Ryan. She cares about what happens to the company. She knows how important it is to all of us. But does she really need to know about future plans and finances?" I pressed. "Don't you think that's crossing a line?" My mom's smile faded, and her expression hardened. "Ryan, you're being paranoid. Jenna has always had good intentions. She's just trying to help." "Help?" I said, incredulous. "She's working with Mark." I pulled out my phone and showed them the picture of Jenna and Mark. "Look at this. She's been meeting with him behind your backs. Do you still think she's just being helpful?" My mum glanced at the photo but didn't look nearly as alarmed as I'd expected. "Ryan, this doesn't prove anything. Jenna knows a lot of people in the industry. This could be completely innocent." "Innocent?" I snapped. "Mark has been trying to undermine us for years, and now Jenna's working with him. How can that be innocent?" "Ryan," my mum said sharply, "you're letting your bitterness cloud your judgment. Not everything is a conspiracy against you." I stared at her, dumbfounded. "Are you serious right now? She's literally scheming with our biggest competitor, and you're defending her." My dad sighed heavily. "Ryan, we know you and Jenna didn't end on good terms, but that doesn't mean she's out to get you. Maybe you should take a step back and think about how you're coming across." "How I'm coming across?" I repeated, my voice rising. "I'm the one trying to protect this family, and you're too blind to see it." The conversation ended with me storming out of the house, angrier than I'd ever been. But as I was leaving, Emily caught up with me in the driveway. "Ryan, wait," she said, grabbing my arm. "There's something you should know." "What?" I asked, still seething. She hesitated. "I overheard Jenna talking to Mum a couple of weeks ago. She mentioned something about how she deserved to be part of the family business because of all the years she spent with this family. Mum just brushed it off, but I don't know. It sounded weird." "Deserved?" I repeated, my heart pounding. Emily nodded. "Yeah, like she thought she had a right to it or something." That was the final straw. I knew I couldn't just sit back and let things unfold. Jenna wasn't just meddling. She was actively plotting to take what was rightfully mine. If my parents wouldn't stop her, I would. After what Emily told me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something much bigger was going on. Jenna wasn't just clinging to my family. She was trying to steal my future. If my parents wouldn't believe me, I needed to find a way to prove it to them. That night, Olivia and I brainstormed our next steps. She suggested we investigate Jenna's ties to Mark to see if there was any solid evidence of a plot against me. Although I wasn't thrilled about digging into someone's personal connections, it seemed like the only way to uncover the truth. I decided to start with Lauren, a former co-worker of Jenna's, who had always been friendly toward me. Lauren had worked with Jenna back when we were married and was known for her knack for catching on to office gossip. "Hey, Lauren," I said when she answered my call. "I know this is kind of out of the blues, but I could really use your help." "Of course, Ryan," she replied. "What's going on?" "I was wondering if you've heard anything about Jenna recently. Specifically, if she's been in contact with someone named Mark. He's involved in the same industry as my family's business." There was a slight pause before Lauren answered. "Actually, yeah. I ran into Jenna at a networking event a few weeks ago, and she was with this guy. I think his name was Mark. They were talking about some kind of business partnership. I didn't catch all the details, but it sounded like they were working on something significant." "Did she mention what it was about?" I asked, doing my best to keep my tone steady. "No, but she brought up opportunities and expanding influence." "It sounded ambitious," Lauren said. My heart sank. "Thanks, Lauren. This really helps. Is everything okay?" she asked, sounding concerned. "Not really," I admitted. "But you've told me exactly what I needed to know." Now that I had confirmation of Jenna and Mark's connection, I needed a way to expose their plans. Olivia suggested a bold strategy: setting a trap by feeding Jenna false information about the family business and seeing if it would reach Mark. It was risky, but it was the only way to gather undeniable proof. The next time I visited my parents, I casually mentioned a fake expansion plan during dinner. I told them I was considering opening a new distribution center in a neighboring state, fully aware that Mark would jump at the chance to exploit such a move if he thought it was real. My mom nodded absent-mindedly, distracted by her phone. I couldn't shake the sinking feeling that she might be texting Jenna about it right then. Over the following days, I stayed alert for any sign that Jenna had taken the bait. It didn't take long. I froze. "Where did you hear that?" "A guy named Mark," the client replied. "He said your family was planning an expansion and might not have the resources to keep servicing clients at the same level. He made it sound like you were overextending yourselves." My blood boiled. Mark had taken the false information and used it to spread doubt among our clients, and it was obvious Jenna had been his source. That evening, I called for a family meeting. My parents, Emily and Jenna, were all present, and I invited Olivia for support. I wasn't holding anything back this time. "I know what you've been doing," I said the moment everyone was seated. My eyes locked on Jenna. She looked surprised, but quickly masked it. "What are you talking about, Ryan? And he's been using it to undermine us." Jenna scoffed, but her hands tightened on the edge of the table. "That's ridiculous. I have no idea what you're talking about." "Oh, really?" I said, pulling out my phone. "Because one of our clients told me Mark mentioned a new distribution center in Oregon. Funny how that's the exact fake idea I told Mom and Dad about 2 weeks ago. The only way he could have known is if someone told him." I glanced at my parents, who both looked confused. "Ryan, Are you saying we gave him that information? My mom asked, frowning. No, I replied, shaking my head. But Jenna did. This is insane, Jenna said, her voice rising. Why would I do that? To sabotage me, I shot back. To make me look bad so you can weasel your way into the business. Don't pretend you haven't been angling for it. My dad's expression darkened. Is this true, Jenna? Have you been talking to Mark? Jenna hesitated, and in that moment, I knew she was caught. I've spoken to him a few times, she finally admitted. But it's not what you think. He's just a friend. A friend who happens to be our biggest competitor, I said, glaring at her. Give me a break. My parents were stunned. My mom looked like she wanted to defend Jenna, but even she couldn't ignore the evidence. My dad, on the other hand, was furious. You've been working with the competition? He demanded. After everything we've done for you. Enough, my dad snapped. I don't want to hear it. Jenna turned to my mum, desperate. Karen, you believe me, don't you? You know I'd never hurt this family. My dad admitted he'd been too trusting, and my mum confessed she had let her personal feelings for Jenna cloud her judgment. It's going to take time to rebuild trust, I said, trying to stay calm. But I'm willing to work on it if you are. Olivia squeezed my hand under the table, silently showing her support. For the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't fighting this battle alone. Still, getting Jenna out of the picture wasn't enough. I knew she and Mark wouldn't stop scheming just because they'd been exposed. If anything, they'd become even more desperate. To truly put an end to their influence, I needed to make sure everyone, clients, family, friends, and anyone else in our circle, understood exactly who Jenna was and what she was trying to do. She's been playing a long game, Olivia said as we sat in the living room that weekend. If we want to stop her, we have to show people her true colors and make it impossible for her to come back. She was absolutely right. Jenna had been like a parasite, thriving on people's goodwill and using it to her advantage. But this time, I was ready to turn the tables. These were the people Jenna had been working to win over, feeding them her polished version of the story. Yeah, Paul replied. She stopped by last month. She mentioned she's still close with your family. Why do you ask? Taking a deep breath, I said. I hate to say this, but Jenna's been using those connections to spread misleading information about our business. She's been collaborating with Mark to undermine us. I thought you should know the truth, so you're not blindsided. Paul was quiet for a moment before responding. I appreciate you being upfront, Ryan. Honestly, I had a feeling something wasn't right when she brought up your supposed expansion plans. Don't worry, we've got your back. These conversations became a recurring pattern. Each time, I chipped away at the false image Jenna had created, slowly unraveling the trust she had built with others. By the time I was done, her reputation was on the verge of collapse. I didn't just want to shake him up. I wanted to force his hand. Olivia cautioned me to be careful. Mark was sharp, and I couldn't afford to give him any ammunition to use against me. We agreed to meet at a neutral spot, a small cafe downtown. I walked in and spotted him sitting at a corner table, his smug demeanor already getting under my skin. Ryan, he said, as he stood to shake my hand. What an unexpected surprise. What brings you here? I skipped the pleasantries. Cut the act, Mark. I know exactly what you and Jenna have been up to. His smirk faltered, briefly before he leaned back in his chair, pretending to be unbothered. I have no idea what you're talking about. Really? I said. pulling out my phone and showing him a photo of him and Jenna at dinner. "You've been meeting with my ex-wife, using insider information she's stolen from my family. Don't insult me by playing dumb." Mark's expression hardened. "You're making some bold accusations, Ryan. You'd better have more than a photo to back them up." "Oh, I do," I said, matching his tone. "Jenna slipped up. She leaked false information to you, something I planted to catch her, and you took the bait." His eyes narrowed, but he didn't reply. I continued, "Here's the deal, Mark." Mark stayed silent as I got up to leave, but the tension in his jaw said everything I needed to know. The partnership between him and Jenna was falling apart, and I was determined to make sure it stayed that way. Despite my efforts, Jenna wasn't going down without a fight. Although she had burned bridges with my parents and most of our clients, she still had a few loyal allies. One of them was Steve, a former employee who had left the company years ago under suspicious circumstances. Steve had a reputation for cutting corners and held a grudge against my family after my dad fired him. Through Emily, who had been quietly keeping tabs on Jenna, I learned that she and Steve were working together to launch a rival company. They had even pitched their idea to some of our smaller clients, hoping to lure them away. That's when I decided to escalate things. While going through our archives, I found old contracts that revealed Steve had violated a non-compete clause when he teamed up with Jenna. Armed with this information, I contacted our legal team and filed a cease and desist order. Within days, Steve's operation was shut down, cutting off Jenna's last lifeline. The fallout was severe. News spread quickly about Jenna and Steve's failed attempt to start a rival business. Clients who had once admired Jenna now saw her for what she truly was: a manipulative opportunist. Even her personal relationships began to crumble. Emily told me through mutual friends that Jenna was struggling to find work and had been forced to move out of her upscale apartment. Mark, likely trying to protect his own reputation, had completely severed ties with her. My parents, to their credit, finally acknowledged their mistake. My mom especially seemed devastated. "I don't know how I let her deceive me," she said, her voice filled with regret. One night, reflecting on the chaos Jenna had caused, my mom confessed, "I thought I was helping her, but all I did was enable her. It's not your fault," I said, though a part of me still held on to some bitterness. "She's just incredibly skilled at pretending to be someone she's not." With Jenna finally out of the picture, life gradually started to stabilize. Olivia and I grew closer through the ordeal, and my parents made genuine efforts to rebuild their relationship with me. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe freely again. One evening, while Olivia and I were relaxing on the couch watching TV, she turned to me and said, "You know, I'm proud of you." "For what?" I asked, surprised. "For standing up for yourself," she said, smiling. "For protecting what's yours." Her words stayed with me long after she said them. Jenna had nearly succeeded in taking everything from me: my family, my business, my future. But in the end, all she had done was destroy herself. Although the dust had mostly settled, one thing still lingered: closure. Jenna's lies had almost torn my family apart, sabotaged my career, and destroyed years of trust. Even though her plans had backfired, I knew I needed to face her one last time. Not out of anger, but to ensure she never resurfaced in my life again. I reached out to Jenna through an old mutual friend, explaining that I wanted to meet her at a neutral location. The friend was hesitant, but passed along the message, and Jenna agreed, likely driven by curiosity about what I had to say. We met at a quiet park on a crisp autumn afternoon. She looked worn down, her usual confident demeanor replaced by something much more subdued. "Ryan," she said with a strained smile, "this is unexpected." I didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Jenna, I'm here to make something clear. This will be the last time we ever have a conversation. You've crossed every line imaginable, and I need you to understand that I'm done with you." Her face tightened. "You've made your point, Ryan. Believe me, I've paid the price." "Have you?" I asked, keeping my voice calm but firm. "Because I don't think you fully understand the damage you caused. You manipulated my parents, tried to sabotage the business, and even worked with Mark to undermine me. For what? Money? Revenge?" She looked away, her expression shifting to defensiveness. "I just wanted what I deserved," she said. "I spent years in your family, supporting you, building a life, and then you threw it all away." I let out a bitter laugh. "You mean when you cheated on me? When you destroyed our marriage? Don't try to twist this into some noble mission, Jenna. You weren't trying to claim what you deserved. You were trying to ruin me because you couldn't handle the fact that I moved on." Her jaw tightened, but for the first time I saw a flicker of vulnerability beneath her carefully constructed facade. "You don't understand, Ryan. After the divorce, I had nothing. No support. No stability. I had to fend for myself, and it wasn't easy. Welcome to the consequences of your actions," I said, rising to my feet. "I don't owe you anything. Not my family, not my business, not my forgiveness. This is the last time we'll speak. Don't contact me or anyone in my family again." She stayed silent as I walked away, and I didn't look back. For the first time in years, I felt free. With Jenna gone for good, I turned my focus back to what truly mattered: my family, my career, and my relationship with Olivia. My parents were deeply apologetic about the role they had played in the chaos. While it wasn't easy, I worked on rebuilding trust with them. One evening over dinner, my dad took the lead in making amends. "Ryan, I want you to know that your mother and I fully support you taking over the business," he said. "We made a mistake trusting Jenna, and we see that now. You've earned this." Hearing those words felt like a weight had been lifted. "Thanks, Dad," I said. "I just want to make sure we're all on the same page moving forward." My mom chimed in, her voice heavy with regret. "We're proud of you, Ryan, and we're sorry for not seeing through her sooner." Emily, ever the peacemaker, added with a smile, "At least it's over now. We can finally move on as a family." With the business secure and my relationships with my family healing, Olivia and I began planning for the future. She had been my rock throughout the entire ordeal, offering wisdom and unwavering support when I needed it most. Taking the next step in our relationship felt natural. One evening, as we sat on the balcony of her apartment overlooking the city lights, I took her hand in mine. "I don't think I could have gotten through this without you," I said. She smiled, leaning into me. "You didn't need me, Ryan. You've always been stronger than you realize. I just reminded you of that." Her words resonated deeply. For years, I had allowed Jenna's actions to dictate my life, but Olivia had helped me reclaim control. She inspired me to want more. Not just for her, but for myself. "I mean it," I said, pulling a small velvet box from my pocket. Her eyes widened as I opened it to reveal a simple yet elegant ring. "Olivia, will you marry me?" Tears welled in her eyes as she nodded. "Yes, 1,000,000 times yes." Though I had moved on, Jenna's reputation continued to unravel. Mark, eager to distance himself from the fiasco, spread rumors about her involvement in their failed schemes. Clients who had once admired her turned their backs, and former allies avoided her entirely. Emily later told me she had heard through mutual acquaintances that Jenna was now working a mediocre job far outside the industry. A far cry from the influential role she had once sought. It wasn't the revenge I had planned, but it was fitting. Jenna's greed and manipulations had been her own undoing. Months later, as I stood at the head of the conference room addressing our team about the future of the family business, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't experienced in years. The challenges Jenna had thrown my way had tested me in ways I couldn't have anticipated, but they had also made me stronger. Looking around the room, I met the eyes of my parents, Emily and Olivia, now my fiancé. This was my family, my support system, my team. Jenna had tried to tear us apart, but all she had done was remind us how much we meant to one another. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And that was more than enough.